That was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Can't be
forward.
like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
I'm Henrietta, I'm a writer and I teach creative writing.
I'm Liesl Jobson, I'm from Johannesburg, I'm a writer and a photographer and a musician.
I'm Helen Moffat, I'm a runaway academic, a writer and an editor.
I'm Sarah Lotz, I'm a television screenwriter and a writer.
I'm Elizabeth Pinar, I'm a writer and an architect.
I'm Lauren Bucas, I'm a writer, a scriptwriter and a journalist, and I wrote a novel called Moxieland.
Hi, I'm Palisa Mazamisa, I'm a writer, an editor and scriptwriter as well.
This is Open. It's an erotic anthology by South African women writers, the first of its kind. It's literary erotica. Everybody here contributed a short story to it.
Actually, I thought the challenge was to write a story that is sensitive and also to write about sex in a manner that is more than just the explicit, almost violent aspect to sex. So for me it was, how do you make this beautiful?
One of the things where writing can be quite important is it's one of the few art forms that you can really get inside the head of the character that you're writing about and talk about experience from the inside out, as opposed to sexuality from the outside in, the superficial elements of aspect of sexuality. And I think that's something that we as writers can really contribute, is that we can show people that there are many different ways to experience sexuality on the inside.
My friends all read my story and they said, well, we like it, but isn't it just too autobiographical? And I was like, what? It was fiction! That's not me in the story. And they all go, oh, yeah, right.
I think our culture has a really warped and weird idea of sexuality, especially for girls. You know, there's an amazing book called The Rise of Raunch Culture by a woman called Ariel Levy. And she writes about how girls, teenage girls, are very happy to dish out lap dances and blowjobs, but the thought of a guy going down on them is disgusting and gross. And we've created this incredibly sexualized, all these very sexualized and very sexy girls who are not sexual. They have no enjoyment of sex, and I think that's terrifying.
A good point. Yeah.
And I think one of the things the book talks about is the Paris Hilton sex video, which I haven't seen. But apparently she lolls there, just bored out of her mind for the entire... And what is the point of being that sexy if you're not going to enjoy sex? And I think that's a hugely worrying concern, you know, not just in South Africa, which is, I think, more conservative, but also the rest of the world.
Well, who's she sexy for? Is she sexy for herself?
No,
I doubt it.
absolutely not. And we're raising a generation of girls who are being sexy for other people, but not enjoying sex themselves. I've just had a daughter, and I hope that she has a wonderful, incredible sex life. My husband would disagree. I think he's going to lock her in the house. But I hope that when she's of age, that she has incredible consensual experiences, and they're just absolutely amazing, and she enjoys them for what they are herself.
The thought of having a daughter just makes my blood run cold. I mean, how would you make her feel happy and optimistic and positive about her sexuality and her body? That's why I said right at the beginning also, what turns a woman on is feeling comfortable in her own body.
It's ironic because I think I've done that with my daughter, even though it sounds like, you know, a bit big-headed, but I think she's experimenting. She's saying that she's bisexual, I'm completely fine with that. She did what the hell she wants. She's 17. So she's slightly overweight, and she's completely happy with that as well. And I wish I could pin down what I'd done right.
Absolutely.
But I think it's just...
Please write it down.
Yeah. Bottle it. But I actually think it's just being there for her whenever she wanted to talk about it, whatever it was. I think I'm just being completely broad-minded about anything.
I suppose people are talking about being parents and being good role models, but I suppose one could consider being a writer similar, is that you're trying to affect your readers in a particular way. But, you know, I often feel I don't feel that brave a lot of the time in my writing. I mean, not everybody is open and happily sexual. There is a lot of insecurity and shame and guilt and all of those complicated emotions involved with even good sex, you know. in my experience, it's mixed. It's very mixed. And in my writing, I try and express that, which I suppose makes what I write not straightforward erotica, I guess. It's more of me trying to be honest about quite a confusing experience of my own.
One of the things that we do as writers, especially when we're writing about our sexuality, is to make ourselves very vulnerable as well. And that takes a certain courage or foolhardiness or a willingness to look like you don't know it all, or you've got these apparently devious fantasies. And I think in terms of how that links to mothering is that if we model as women for our daughters, and I've got a 16-year-old daughter, if we model ourselves as kind of having the courage of our convictions, obviously not disclosing what goes on in the bedroom to a child, but the life choices we make, the way we dress, the things that we buy and buy into, the ideas, this is ultimately how we give our daughters permission to be authentically sexy, to be authentically intelligent, to be authentically wealthy in the different ways that wealth manifests.
I think for me, it was having a younger brother, and we were very close, and I always spent a lot of time with boys. And I think that really made a fundamental difference in who I am and how I experience men and how I can be really great friends with men as well.
So you're very comfortable right from the beginning?
Completely.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue. I think it's quite an issue in Britain as well, because there's so many same-sex schools. When I was growing up, not so much now, and that really ostracizes you from the opposite sex, and they're almost like different species.
Yeah, completely.
Well, they are. But
they are, yeah.
For me, one of the biggest issues to deal with in my own life was, courtesy of a good Catholic upbringing maybe, shame. But if your children don't grow up with a sense of shame at feeling this or doing that or thinking that, you've given them such an immense freedom. Which is not to say that you're not teaching them things aren't right and wrong, but I certainly feel my generation grew up with this huge platform of guilt and shame about all sorts of sexual issues.
I think our relations with our fathers also inform this debate very strongly. And in fact, my dad is coming to the launch tonight. And that's very exciting for me, because I think that where fathers are connected to their daughters in meaningful ways, that also informs how you experience the world of men, and whether it gives you ways of interacting with men as equals, if you've been treated as an equal. And to that end, I'm very blessed.
I come from quite a bit of a philosophical family and quite an open-minded, educated family. So they didn't really say much about it. They were just very excited, especially my father, I must say.
I'm finishing a book on sexual violence. Now, if you want to stay a militant radical feminist in this country, just do this much research on that topic, and your fangs will practically drip and slaver. But I still agree with everything Lauren says. I just think it's different facets of the same globe, same argument. I don't like demonizing men. They are not part of the problem. They are not the problem. They are also dehumanized. And what I find helpful is explaining to men who automatically say, "Oh my God, you're a feminist." And I get a lot of that, especially from men my own age.
It's a dirty word. It's
oh God, absolutely. That's why I use it about myself. Look at me, this is what it is. And I'd be interested to know what the rest of you think about this. But then they're very interested to know, they say, well, how did you get to be a feminist? And I said, in 1984, I read Steve Biko's I Write What I Like. And the notion that you could judge yourself by who you really were and not by some externally imposed set of standards was just the most liberating thing I'd ever experienced.
There are obvious big power imbalances in just about every sphere of life. I think I consider myself quite fortunate in that my specific life is not too restricted by these. I think I'm lucky in that way. And I don't like to demonize men either. I have many of my warmest relationships are with men. But I do think that that women do kind of alter ourselves to fit into those male power structures and are very self-conscious about how we appear to men in many ways, in our behaviour, in our appearance, in our sexuality. And I do think that the men I choose to associate with are not kind of evilly manipulating this. I really don't think that.
I do define myself as a feminist, but as my husband says, it's more of a humanist, because I believe that men and women are equal, and that we should all have equal opportunity. And I think what that comes down to for me is that it's about choice, that women should have choice to do whatever they want in any circumstances. So if they want to wear a bikini or if they want to wear a burqa, that's entirely up to them. That's based on their choice within a culture that allows them to have choice. I find discussions about the patriarchy tiresome and kind of overrated. I think in a lot of ways we do still have to deal with incredible sexism. There's an incredibly conservative sexual culture in this country. You know, there was a woman attacked at a taxi rank in Johannesburg a while ago for wearing a miniskirt, and she was stripped naked by the crowd, and she was told that she was asking for it. And the same with certain court cases involving kangas. And so there is certainly that aspect of it, but I do think we need to stop this culture of blame and actually move beyond that and look at how we can address it.
I think we have to ask ourselves, as mothers of sons, how are we raising our men? How are we teaching them to honor women, to relate to women, to fear women, to scorn women? You know, it's, to me, we have a huge responsibility. It's very easy to jump on a bandwagon and point fingers and demonize men, but actually each one of us as women, as a sister, as a daughter, as a mother, as a niece, as an auntie, we interact with men every day. How are we doing this in a way that challenges our societies?
They found out that when men raise sons and get really involved, and when they do sex education, and when they talk about them, and when they love the mothers of their children, and when they show respect to their mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, or wives, it has the most dramatic turnaround effect. So they found out that it's no good, for example, lecturing women on preventing sexual violence. I mean, really, that's like telling cancer survivors to sort of take their vitamins. It's too late at that point. You've got to work with boys, and who's got to do the working with boys? Men.
It's a complex issue, Helen. It's a highly complex issue because...
Well, yes, I know, you should see my book.
When we tolerate certain behaviors in our sons, when we turn a blind eye to disrespect from our sons, we are setting a tone for our sons, and it's too easy to take a polarized view, and this is something where men and women have to be working. Mothers and fathers, even when they're divorced, even when they're separated, actually have to be working together on this. There are different ways to be honest about sex and sexuality, and some ways are more kind of activist than others, but I think they're all allowed. You know, we have to give each other the space to be honest and admit not only to kind of deviant fantasies or whatever, but also to our weaknesses and our lacks.
I thought that for South African women to be able, admittedly, middle-class women, literate women, to be able to write a book like that in a country with our statistics meant that there was hope. It means that we can visualize, part of the fantasy maybe is that we can visualize happy, equal sexual relationships, but hey, you got to dream it.
My dream is to have one small thing to get done every day, rather than 5 million.
I guess my dream is to come into a conviction about who I am, what I want to say, what I believe in, with a deep sense of serenity, and somehow to put to bed the demons of anxiety about whether I'm on the right track or not.
Nobody ever to lift a hand against a woman in violence anywhere, ever again. I'll settle for that.
What she said, and also I'd really like to live to see my daughter really happy. So.
It definitely comes down to children. If I see my children happy, then I'll be happy.
I want my daughter to have the most incredible life where she has every opportunity and every choice to do whatever she wants, even if it means she becomes a Hannah Montana fan.
I think just what Helen said as well, but just a peaceful existence.